All right, many times it's been said that all it takes for a great song is 4 chords and the truth. Well, we got that going on here, as well as 4 tracks and the truth. And so we're going to explore that concept a bit. This is a follow-up to a previous episode that was focusing on the band's version of this song. Originally, I was kind of biased in that direction because I had never really experienced the Nebraska album, and since that time, a lot of water under the bridge, and I've been kind of like reborn in this version, and so really happy to share this today on 6-string philosophy. All right, so here's your chords. Again, only really 4 chords in this whole song, which is beautiful. So we start with this E minor shape, G, C, G. So at the end of each one of those verses, the last line of the verse, instead of just revving through that chord progression, it'll go, and the gambling commissioner's hanging on by the skin of his teeth. It goes to a D chord there. So that's the 4th chord in the conversation. So verse 1 doesn't have that, but verse 3 has it. Well, I got a job, trying to put my money away, but I got debts no honest man can pay. So I drew what I had from that Central Trust, and I bought us 2 tickets, change on the big city bus. Then to the chorus. First chorus, he rolls in with that. It changes slightly. He revs through it and goes, but maybe everything that dies someday comes back. On the D, and then hits the 1 on that E minor. It only happens once or twice. The 1 time is very obvious in the first chorus, and then it's almost indiscernible whether he does that again. Now, since the capo's on, you're actually in the key of A, and so the harmonica that you're using is an A diatonic major. The first musical break is the same main chord progression. The second musical break almost reminds me of that song by the Goo Goo Dolls, that song Slide. So what he's doing there is it's a C, add 9, G. Again, C, add 9. Then G to a D to finish that bar. So I keep that slide song in my head because that music break is not in the band version. And so there's constantly, I have to demagnetize that version from pulling me back in. And so I need that like mnemonic device. I'm like. And on this one, I feel like the harmonica is less written. It's less of a hook. And so I just kind of like lean on it like. All right, 4 times through that. From there, the last time, now it takes us into the bridge. C, E minor, C, D, E minor. Then it moves back to the C again. To where the sand turns to gold. Put on your stockings, babe, 'cause the night's getting cold. So that part, it's just like that musical break. C add 9. Then when it hits that D, 2, only a 2 count there. 1, 2. I'm opening up that E string, and I'm keeping this note on the D note there for that C add 9. Okay, and letting that. And then it's going to hit back into that last musical break. original. So once you get to that point, you got to survive the second music break with the harmonica, the bridge, an alternative mini chorus, then another musical break. That third musical break is short. It's only, basically 2 times through the chord progression. So the really cool part about this one is where it falls in his career. And I think that you can't really talk about the song without talking about the album. And you can't talk about the album without talking about what was going on in his life at that time. So my buddy gave me the book that goes along with the movie, which, actually the book came first, by Warren Zanes. Incredibly well written. My intention was to sit down with that physical format copy and read it. Instead, I ended up having to do a road trip, which took me about 10 hours over the course of a 24-hour period. And so I downloaded the book, audio version of the book, which is Warren himself reading it, which was a nice surprise. And I grinded it out over the course of that road trip. Also, got a chance to listen to the entirety of the album, Nebraska, which I was totally ignorant of. I feel like through the years I've, picked up and looked at the back, at the track listing. I was stunned. When at first listening, when the song Nebraska comes on, it has this feeling almost like how I felt when I listened to the Joshua Tree album in Joshua Tree National Park and visiting 29 Palms. I had this feeling instantly where I'm like, oh, well, he must have went out on the prairie and experienced Nebraska, and it's all going to be about, his travels or something like that. Not the case. This came after sort of the adrenaline drained away from the River Tour, which was a crazy world tour for him, supporting his first #1 single, Hungry Heart. And basically he was on top of the world, and his whole life had shifted and changed. In this album, he sort of sequestered himself, not in Nebraska, but in Colts Neck, New Jersey, in a rental house with just his mandolin, his guitar, his harmonica, and a 4-track recorder. And so, pulling back to the original concept of 4 tracks and the truth, if you think of the old school audio cassettes, there's a piece of tape that runs through them, and that's where the music is recorded. And what the 4-track does is it splits that in half on A side and B side, and so you can put on there guitar, drums, bass, vocal, and get a rudimentary recording, or in Bruce's case, being alone without the E Street Band, thinking he was recording demos, he went and he recorded these songs and did his own, very personal versions of them with the intention of then sharing it out with the band and just seeing what would happen to them. Turns out that they were so singular and beautiful takes, each one of them, that they couldn't reproduce it in the studio, so the legend goes. His originals became the masters after long deliberation and lots of other technical hurdles that they tried to clear to try and incorporate them into larger studio arrangements. It just never happened. It was psychologically straining. Thinking back, being alone in this house and processing a lot of what had happened in the previous year, and what a whirlwind it was to finally be at the next echelon of success, kind of had him looking at his life. And there was a lot of unprocessed trauma from his youth and neglect and other issues. That, coupled with what his immediate influences were, watching late night movies and also thinking back to 1950s growing up in New Jersey, all of these colliding images, plus, according to the author, Bruce was a fan of Flannery O'Connor, who wrote these, she wrote these short stories that were pretty gritty and challenging to read. So he had a lot of intense things that were going on. And then the real kind of subtext here is this person that went on a murder spree back in the 1950s, who was caught and tried eventually, and his girlfriend was brought in on it too. And so the actual song Nebraska is kind of built inside of that head. And then you have Highway Patrolman, you have Mansion on a Hill, you have all these other songs on there that are like so personal, and yet like right along with Bruce's typical work, where it's like he takes this bamboo brushstroke and goes and just creates characters in one shot, give them a name, and they're alive. And he doesn't spend a lot of time sketching out, what their backstories are, but you don't need it. You're immediately there. And, check out this album. It's really cool, and the way that it's so raw and so fierce. If you're watching this after the movie comes out, tell me what you think. I'm curious to see it. This one is a little bit of an outlier. The Atlantic City doesn't figure in quite with the formula on the rest of the tunes on this album, depending on which way the director goes. I don't know whether they're going to make much of it. In the book, it's really almost just a tiny footnote for this song, though it is a great one. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to the channel. There's lots of stuff there. Hope you'll pick up your guitar and give this one a try. Have fun. See you on the next one.